We'd like to thank Game Up, our sponsor for the podcast. They make a thirst-quenching adult beverage with a special blend of electrolytes. Comes in 4 great flavors: fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape.
Right, and it's only 110 calories. It's a low-carb drink, so you can just not feel guilty and enjoy some Game Up. We had the PFL Battle of the Giants with the big story coming out, Francis Ngannou getting the W. Before we get into that and what we think might be next for Francis or what we want next for Francis, anything else you want to talk about on this card?
Yeah, further on down the card, Irishman Paul Hughes fought. He got a decision win over AJ McKee, and we know how great AJ McKee is. That's a very impressive win. He comes from Cage Warriors, and then he had one fight in Bellator, then fight in PFL. I'd love to see him make it over, fight some lightweights in the UFC at some point. He's still young. He looked great, though, so shout out to him. Johnny Eblin won a super boring fight against Fabian Edwards. Terrible, terrible fight. But Cyborg got another belt, so I think she's won a belt in like every major MMA promotion other than one championship.
Strikeforce, Bellator, PFL.
She had the UFC belt at one point, right?
UFC, yeah. You name it. I mean, that is the most decorated female champion in MMA history. Obviously, Nunes had the double belt and was a 2-time bantamweight champ in the UFC. So, and she beat Cyborg, so she's going to be looked at as the GOAT. But if you're arguing other people, that's probably the next person that's going to be argued the most.
She's definitely done it for longer, super dominant from the beginning. I mean, from her second fight going forward, basically.
There are ways of looking at this. And the other 2 names that might pop up would be Gina Carano as a pioneer, and Ronda Rousey would be the other pioneer who put MMA on the map. But I think when you look at not only good for women's MMA, but if you're just looking at overall success and accomplishments, you're looking at Nunes Cyborg. That's going to be the big comparison, I think, with, I wish... It's kind of a bummer in a way that she left. It'd be fun to have watched those 2 fight again. I mean, he knocked her out, but it was like they just Tommy Hearns Hagrid it and said, we're just going to bite down and go for it. And the end result was not good for Cyborg that night, but it would definitely be interesting. And I remember even, might have been Clarissa Shields, I'm not sure, one of her boxing partners was mad at her because she said, you threw down all your technique.
Yeah, but, shout out to Cyborg. She's, like you said, a pioneer, great champion. 39 years old, winning a belt is tremendous at any weight class, but respect to her.
Absolutely. And of course, the big part of this segment is Francis Ngannou. He gets a huge win. He gets the finish. Emotional moment, talking about his son afterwards. Super happy for this guy because he should have won by all intents and purposes. But like we talked about going into this, he did 2 boxing fights and hasn't fought MMA in a while. The elements of, man, he could blow this were there. He didn't blow it. He did what he had to do. Good on him. I hope he fights another MMA fight again. But if he is going to do a boxing fight, Deontay Wilder is the only boxing fight I'd really like to see with him right now.
Yeah, I would. If it's going to be boxing, that's the only one I want to see too. If by some way or means John Jones wins this weekend and wants to avoid Tom Aspinall, or honestly wants just the money fight, and they can figure that out with Francis, that would be tremendous. I don't think that's happening, and I don't think the PFL really has too much else for Francis. I know he has a deal to build basically PFL versions of the PI, the UFC PI in Africa, and start developing talent there, because he says everyone that walks around looks like him there. So that's a terrifying prospect if you're an MMA fighter. But I know he's older, but he still looks so great. I think somewhere they got to find something for him.
Yeah. And don't be surprised, too, as outlandish as this is, don't be surprised with Jake Paul being part of the PFL, if he's successful against Tyson, they do a boxing match with him and Francis. And if they ever were going to get Jake Paul to do an MMA fight with a name, as crazy as it sounds, I could see the deal with Francis being like, I'll box you, but we got to do MMA. Would that all come together? I doubt the first one. I highly doubt the second part of that even more. But I'm just going to tell you, with Jake Paul being associated with the PFL and obviously it all being about money, and you're not working with the UFC, there's really only so many money matchups you can do. So I'm just saying, I would not be surprised if things are on the table in the future. But again, highly doubtful.
Jake is crazy, but he's not stupid. Like he's
Yeah.
I don't see him ever getting in an octagon or a ring with that's life changing. Francis will change your life. He's, only fought guys that are smaller than him. So I don't see him fighting Francis, who is much larger than he is.
Would be scary
But
problem.
yeah, that would make a lot of money. But Jake can make a lot of money doing a lot of anything else.
True.
So
True.
If you haven't tried Game Up, then you are missing out. Imagine your favorite seltzer and your favorite sports drink had a baby, but it's way better than that. Each can is 110 calories, low carb, 4.9 ABV. It's a nice light drink that is not light on flavor. Game Up comes in fruit punch, orange, lemon, lime, and grape. Pick it up at drinkgameup.com or at your nearest liquor store.